I've seen some of the gigs you did, like, and there's to be 100,000 people or something. Like, did you just take it all in your stride? But I was also thinking, I saw a video of you with Juan. How do you pronounce it? Juan Alderete.
Oh yeah, Juan Alderete. Yeah.
Was that almost more of a pinch me moment, sitting in chatting to him, than playing to 100,000 people? That, because you're like this, someone from when you were a teenager that inspired you, and you're just sitting there chatting to him about pedals and playing the bass. That must have been as big as seeing 100,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, it's, to be honest, all of that stuff feels really surreal. Yeah, I mean, like those gigs of that size are mad. There's a weird sort of like, not detachment, but I think when I would get much more nervous playing in like a small like pub sort of gig venue, because you can see everyone, and like if one person isn't enjoying the gig, that's like 10% of the audience. From my experience,
and you can't see the audience at the big gigs because the lights are so bright.
Yeah, and I think there's something almost like chemical that happens when you have like 100,000 humans together. It's sort of like that one person not having a good time. You know, you can always find someone who's having the best time of their life. But it's definitely... So I think sometimes actually the danger of like the big gigs is it's really easy to almost sort of like dehumanize the crowd and sort of not really see them as people anymore, and it's just a crowd. And I think if you don't sort of, I guess both helpfully, if you sort of just engage with that, any sort of sense of fear or nerve sort of go. And yeah, like I guess like for me that it did get to a point where it was so sort of normal and regular, and it's the outside stuff where you can actually see the crowd, like, whereas when you're playing like an arena gig with the lights and stuff, you can't really see the crowd. And so like you can feel the energy, but it's more that, whereas like, I mean, like the Juan thing was wild. I mean, like it was, like he'd been, I think for me growing up, it was like my kind of big bass heroes were like the two like real prominent ones for me were like Justin Meldal-Johnson and Juan, and both of them, their sort of use of effects pedals and creating sort of interesting sounds, and that like really kind of creative approach to their instrument was just a massive inspiration for me, and really I've essentially built a career on ripping them off. And
to have him invite you on his TV show,
I mean, like
so
that.
cool.
So I think like we connected on Instagram or something, and then we'd message back and forth every now and then, and I was always like, "This is mental."
Yeah.
And then
you're trying to be cool, talking to him. Oh, hi, how are you? But you're saying to your wife, "This is unbelievable."
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was totally it. And then he was like, I think there was one time he's like, "Oh, you're going to be in LA?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh man, like come and hang out." And so like the first, because I've done like 2 interviews with pedals and effects, and like the first time, that first one was the first time I'd met him in person, and it was like, he was like, "I'll come down to my studio space," and I sort of arrived, and he was like, "I don't want to talk to you too much. I want to capture that," like that sort of.
It's like doing this. It's like you can't have a conversation before you press record. You just go.
Yeah, so it was. I mean, and it was wild because it was like walking in, and it's like him and then Nick Reinhardt's there, and in terms of like for me, two really, you know, both of them are so kind of inspiring creative forces. And it was just mad, sort of being sat there in the room, and sort of having that chat and having that moment of realizing, like, I think in that video I did the thing where I showed Juan how I used the density Hulk in parallel to like a micro synth with a chorus afterwards.
Yeah, that's what you were showing, how to retain the low end or something. He was really interested. He was like, "Wow, that's classic."
And it was like, I think like he texted me like a couple of days after that and was like, "Dude, I just did that at a gig." And it was that thing where I was like, "This is really weird."
Yeah,
there's this sort of that relationship shifted to that, and you know that, and it, you know, that kind of got to a point where, you know, anytime I was in LA, I'd have seen him and hung out with him, and just like he is like just such a light of like musical joy. Like I've not, you know, I've just not met. I'd like again, like I feel like when I was starting out doing session stuff, I'd meet older musicians who were all just a bit jaded.
Yeah, that's not like, that never is that inspiring, is it? Like,
no, and I always was like I guess like that first point I made at the beginning where I was like I never really thought about when to walk away from something. I remember though like chatting to someone who was like in their 40s and hating music, and I remember being like I want to quit before I get to there, or make sure I never get there. And I felt for like the longest time I really struggled to find anyone that had gone that far. And then like Juan was just, yeah, like anytime I saw him or anytime I had conversation with him, he was like, have you heard this record? Have you checked out this? Or like, just, there's like still that like vitality around music that, you know, and like even like sometimes with like my peers and like people my age, you'd like talk to people and you'd be like, oh, have you heard like this new, like there'd be like a record that I'd have heard that I'd be really excited about. And people were like, I know I don't really listen to music. You
stop. Everyone does that. You did a lot. Well, obviously you don't, but you kind of stop listening after a while. You're like, I just have these bands I liked as a teenager, and I don't need to hear any more music ever again.
Yeah, I think there's maybe something. I think as time's gone on, I'm like, maybe there's something wrong with me. Like, I'm like constantly like addicted to trying to find like new music. I think it's probably that slightly sort of like indie snob teenage version of me.
You want to be the first to find it before anyone else.
Yeah, like I need to be able to be like, oh, the first EP that they put out independently is way better than anything else they've done.
No, you're at a party and you're like, they don't even know what sample this song is using.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely like, I remember going through that phase of like, yeah, like being obsessed with working out like where loads of the samples were coming from and trying to like familiarize myself with that, but I sort of gave up.
Yeah, it was just you went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
but even talking about Juan, I think what kept him probably kept his fire going is he kind of wasn't he in like this prog Racer X, is that what they were called?
Yeah.
But then the Mars Volta is like a prog rock band, and the guys in it are probably 10-20 years younger than him, and like that was a completely fresh band, different type of music, so he was fearless in that way to go and do a project that was completely different to what he was used to.
Yeah, I think like someone's just come into the studio. Sorry,
that's great.
Just in case someone walked in. Yeah, I think I mean like I wonder with that stuff, like I also imagine like part of the reason of him being involved in that is because of that vitality as well. Like I wonder if that was like, you know, I just think him being sort of able to hang in that was because of his sort of just how switched on and engaged he was and is with everything, and that like almost like I think having been inspired by his musicality, I think then to actually sort of spend time and to be like, oh, actually that sort of just like life vitality, like I feel like from him I learned so much about just maintaining a passion for music. And like he tours so well, like you know, like he'd have gone out with his bike and would have, you know, and I definitely went through like almost sort of slightly depressive stages of touring where it's really easy just to like on days off just stay in your hotel room and
it is like, you go into yourself like.
Yeah, I mean, and like I'm introverted by nature, so it's like especially for me, sort of like probably the first 20 minutes after coming off of stage, I just need a bit of time to just sort of like regather my energy. Not that it's not like it's that weird thing, I have that real buzz, but I definitely sort of come off of it and just I want to sort of be able to enjoy that buzz and have like a little bit of time just to myself. And so like especially like then on like a day off on tour, having been in like the venue tour bus thing, like sort of having that space can be really exciting to be like, oh, I can just be in this space, I don't have to interact with anyone.
Do you know what I did?